You ever meet someone who talks about their future like it's already happening? They'll be sitting there, living a completely normal life, but speaking with this calm certainty, like the world just hasn't caught up to their plans yet, and it doesn't feel like bragging or delusion. It's almost like they're genuinely operating from a different version of reality you can't see. And the funny thing is, it never stands out at first. It's not like they walk around giving motivational speeches. It's more subtle than that. You'll notice it when they talk about plans that sound way too big for where they are right now, and they say it so casually that you almost miss it. It's in the little comments, the way they talk about when instead of if, the way they say something completely unrealistic with the same tone you'd use to talk about doing laundry, and you look at them thinking, you're a bit early for that, don't you think? But they don't flinch, because to them, it doesn't feel early at all. And at some point, you can't help wondering what's going on in their head, because it's not normal to talk like the future is already confirmed when the present looks nothing like it. There's a gap there, a kind of mental jump, and you start asking yourself where that comes from, and why only a small group of people seem to think this way. The thing is, people who end up achieving big things don't really process reality the same way everyone else does. They're not ignoring what's happening around them. They're just paying attention to a different part of it. Most people look at what's right in front of them and make choices from there. High achievers look at the same situation and immediately jump to what it could turn into. It sounds small, but it completely shifts how they move. Where the average person sees a tiny opening and shrugs, they see the start of something. Where most people would take a setback personally, they treat it like a data point, almost like the universe saying, all right, try again, but this time, adjust. It's not forced optimism or intelligence. Their mind simply leans toward possibility instead of threat. For them, that confidence doesn't feel like optimism at all. It feels reasonable, and that's where people start to misunderstand them. From the outside, it can look ridiculous when someone with nothing to show yet speaks with that level of certainty. But in their mind, they've already spent so much time imagining where they're headed that it doesn't feel like a prediction anymore. It feels familiar, almost like they've visited the moment they're aiming for. So they naturally start acting from that version of themselves instead of the one everyone else sees right now. And yeah, it looks strange, almost like treating a blueprint with the seriousness you'd treat the finished building. But that's genuinely how their mind works. Emotionally, what they do is actually pretty simple. They can hold where they are and where they're going in the same mental space without feeling like those two things contradict each other. A setback doesn't rewrite their identity, and a slow phase doesn't make them question the entire direction. They see what's happening right now, but they don't treat it as the full story. And while most people would feel like they're pretending if they did that, for them it's the opposite. Letting go of that future version would feel like pretending. They lock into the future version of themselves long before the results show up. And in between those 2 points, the person they are right now and the one they're shaping themselves into, there's this strange space they operate from. Most people avoid that space because it feels uncertain and uncomfortable, but they treat it like home base. That's where their choices come from, where their consistency comes from, where all the long nights and long shots actually make sense. From the outside, it looks like a huge gap that they're blindly jumping across. But from their perspective, that gap isn't empty at all. It's the part that gives everything meaning. Psychologists do have names for this way of thinking, even if the labels sound way more dramatic than the reality. A big part of it is optimism bias, but not in the cheesy, think positive way. It's more like their brain quietly leans toward the idea that things will eventually work out. Then there's the fact that they're simply not as overwhelmed by the idea of failing as most people are. They still feel fear, but it doesn't take over the whole picture. It doesn't snowball into all the worst case scenarios. They're also unusually connected to their future self, which means they make choices with that person in mind, almost as if they're already responsible for them. And on top of that, they're able to hold the present version of themselves and the future one without mentally short-circuiting. Put all of that together, and you get a way of thinking that sounds complicated on paper, but feels completely normal to them in everyday life. When you put all of this together, it's easy to understand why they get labeled as delusional. From the outside, their choices don't match their situation, but from their perspective, they're simply following the direction their mind has already committed to. And this actually says something bigger about how people operate. Most of us react to whatever is directly in front of us. The numbers, the past, what feels safe. High achievers don't move like that. They take their signals from the future, from the version of life they're already building in their head. Potential feels concrete to them, and imagination carries weight, so their actions naturally follow that path. And when someone moves through life, guided by a reality that hasn't shown up yet, it's not surprising that people reach for the same label every time, being delusional. And that's why the word delusional doesn't really fit the way people use it. Most of the time, what we call delusion is just confidence that hasn't had the chance to show proof, yet it's the early stage of a goal before anyone else can see where it's going. High achievers aren't trying to escape reality. They're shaping a different version of it in their mind, long before it shows up in real life. It happens quietly, through small choices, small risks, and a belief that doesn't always make sense to anyone except them. And when you look at it from that angle, it stops feeling like delusion and starts looking like the first draft of the future. If you look at how anything starts, it's always going to sound unrealistic in the beginning. That's just the nature of things that don't exist. People who grow past their circumstances always sound a little off because they're talking working from a place they haven't reached yet. And maybe that's the part we don't admit out loud. Progress usually begins with someone who can picture something that isn't real yet, and is stubborn enough to take it seriously anyway. Someone who trusts the version of themselves they're trying to become, even when nothing around them matches it. Someone who can hold on to that future long enough for the rest of the world to notice. High achievers don't seem delusional because they reject reality. They seem delusional because they refuse to let reality stay the same.